All right, so just to give you some more insights, this
What was supposed to be a simple matter is
yeah,
turning out to be not so simple and clear cut.
yeah,
I
the,
lost
the the minority is saying that they will have nothing to do with the import and export regulations that the Minister for Trade wants to lay before the House. Now, the way this works is because it's a legislative instrument, it's not supposed to be debated. So you lay it, and then it matures after 21 days and becomes law. And for the past three occasions, they've been trying to lay it without success. And the minorities against the laying, and they're saying that the contents don't inure to the benefit of the country. The minister himself has said that there's nothing untoward about the law. And initially I was saying that I thought the minority should not do this, but I have been informed that for an ally, you can't really do much as a minority. So you can possibly only physically prevent, because once it's laid, it's laid. And you can only reverse it if you have 2/3 majority saying they want it overturned. So
it doesn't look like it will happen.
If they get the numbers, they will lay it. And if they lay it, that's it. So the question that we need to ask is, what did they do pre-laying? Because when you listen to the discussions on the floor, they are very animated. So did they use the mechanism of
pre-laying?
And the other point is that the minister is the one whose discretion will decide whether, of course, based on the advice of the committee, but he can decide to reject or accept. So this is my concern. If this law gives power to one man to decide who can import these products and what quantity they can import, all right, now the person in charge or who's been given that power should be seen as a consensus builder. So if the debate degenerates, and I'm not even sure it's a full debate, but the excerpts I have heard, it's like up and down.
Yes,
there's no agreement. How will the other side trust that you will execute the responsibility of managing the regime in a way that is fair? All right. For me, this has to have consensus written all over it, but it doesn't seem to have it. So I'm not sure if the fears of the minority will be allayed. Do you get me? Because they're saying, why do you want to take us to the Kalabule days? Why do you want some people to decide? Why do you want a politician to be the one? Which is quite interesting, because in their time as well, I think in 2016, they did one for cement.
Yes.
Of course, this is 22 products. 22 is broader.
Yes.
But there's a lot of things in there as to whether Parliament is really helpless, and whether, even though they are using the LI route, there isn't space for better discussion. For example, I still haven't seen the data on the imports. All right, I shared data on import from Statistical Service, but I haven't seen production of the products data
and what they are working with.
So the 3 data points I would want: import data for the 22 products. I need to see our local capacity data, and then I also want to see our balance of payment situation and their sensitivity to these products. Somebody's able to conduct analysis and say, so if, for example, rice is imported most in the 3rd quarter, is there a correlation between the spike in rice imports and the currency depreciation? You can get an economist to do the analysis for you.
They can do a lot of simulations, models.
Yes. So you come to
that can give projections.
Yeah. I'm not saying they've not done it, but you see, where we've gotten to...
We've not heard it from Parliament yet.
I mean, for me, the debate in Parliament is a lot of shouting. I don't agree, I agree. Do you know what I got in exams? I got 38 in economics, or in something. Like, that's all. And then it's not... I don't, like, for example, I haven't heard even the opposition use facts to say that this will destroy the economy. They are basically saying that we don't trust you to implement it well. All right? If the minority had come out to say, look, based on our analysis, this is going to lead to this number of countries to retaliate. Haruna hinted that this type of product, there will be a shortage. This type of product will be smuggled, and that it will be counterproductive even for the FX position. If you put those facts out, but it's all a lot of, we won't agree, we'll do it, and it's not nice, it's not good enough. The parliamentary debate is supposed to also enrich the knowledge of even ordinary Ghanaians. So children go to parliament to listen, right? Are you telling me that if a JSS student goes to parliament to listen to parliament for one day, they will master the art of debate by just listening to the way they debate? You don't have to raise your voice. Use facts. But we are not hearing that. This is a very important national issue. 1 month to Christmas.
Yeah.
All right. So I hope Parliament will figure out how to debate this in a more cogent way.
Right. I agree with you. I'm trying to. I will try and break down the restrictions, LI.
Yeah.
As it's been laid in Parliament. Perhaps we can glean
something
from
yes.
The wedding. But there are those who have also said that, yes, our constitution does allow ministers to make regulations by legislative instruments and the likes, but the implementations have been problematic. And looking at just how profound an impact this one is likely to have was an LI
the best route. I'll deal with that. But that's a good question.
Because the LI means that, like you said, you cannot debate it. Okay?
Yes.
You just lay it and then it goes through certain processes and then it might get passed or not. But if this were to come through, and this is this particular LI is taking its roots from the Export and Import Act 1995.
Yes.
Section 12 and 13.
So that's the problem we've created for ourselves.
So if you look at the 1995 Act, Section 12 on restriction of export and import basically says, it's one line. The minister may, by legislative instruments, prohibit or restrict the exportation or importation of such goods as may be specified in the instrument.
And you see why the MPP's decision to boycott the 93 parliament is bad. Because this law was passed in 95. In that parliament, there was no opposition. And now the minister is deriving. So it's almost like, take that, right? NPP is back to tell NDC, because you are right, the minister is using Import and Export Act.
Yes.
So if you go to section 12, the minister may,
he has the power,
by LI, prohibit or restrict the exportation or importation of the goods specified in the instrument. So Minister Hammond is not doing anything illegal based on the Import and Export law that the 95 Parliament passed. The minister may, by legislative instrument, make regulations restricting or prohibiting the export or import of goods, prescribing the categories of goods for which the exchange control, a Ghana export form or an import declaration form is not required, etc., etc., etc. So he's using LI because that's what the law asked him to use.
Yes, but I'm saying that what would have been important and in the debates, and I guess those who were engaged, because yesterday when you spoke to Humphrey, for instance, he made mention of the fact that they had been consulted. So in the conversations, they made inputs.
Yeah.
So AGI would have made inputs. Now, if you look at the purpose, right, it establishes 3 purposes. So 1, establish a special import management mechanism for regulating and monitoring the importance of the selected strategic products set out in the first schedule for the economic development of the country. Yesterday we heard Humphrey make a debate on this. We've heard those who are against also make their points about it. B, streamline and rationalize the import bill of the country to improve balance of payments and economic stabilization. That's something that will come from the Ministry of Finance. And C, provide measures to conserve foreign exchange, safeguard critical imports, and contribute to sustainable consumption. That is still a mixture of trade and industry and the Ministry of Finance. So we have heard from the Ministry of Finance.
Do you know the other problem Minister Hammond has? A budget was read 2 weeks before. I didn't hear
mention of this in the budget.
The Minister of Finance say anything about this. Minister of Agric has been speaking about food prices this week. I haven't heard him say anything about this. You see, so let me just be honest. There are a lot of questions. The LI question for me, the minister is protected. You can say Act 503 says I should use an LI.
13.
Where is the data around the choice of the 22 products? That's question 1. Number 2, why has Finance Ministry not come out to support this? Why has BOG not come out to support this?
We need to hear, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Based on purposes B and C, we need to hear from the Finance Ministry. They cannot run away from this. Because
they will provide the data
to back this.
What this minister is saying. Bank of Ghana.
Yes, and BOG. We need to hear from Finance Ministry.
And do you know what's interesting?
On this matter.
In this past 2 weeks that this thing has been a national issue, BOG MPC has made an announcement.
Yes.
Now, I could be wrong.
If you look at
I did not hear
the maintenance of 30%.
I didn't hear Governor Addison. I didn't hear Governor Addison say anything about this.
No.
Now, why is this important? The monetary authorities are in charge of exchange rate control, exchange rate management. Do you get it? So if you are, and I do know that the MPC's announcement was on the policy rate, but they did meet the press. Again, I did not listen to the whole press conference, so I stand to be corrected. But there was no headline around governor saying that in addition to all the measures we've seen to tame inflation, we also support the import restrictions LI because it will go a long way to help us in our balance of payments. I did not hear that. Now, we did hear the BOG endorse the oil for gold because and
of its impact on balance of payments.
You see, and when you start nitpicking, you realize that there isn't. So when they say policy coherence, so your big problem, if you ask me, your biggest economic problem is your exchange rate stability because you're an import-dependent economy. Yeah. At least in the past 18 months, that's your biggest problem. You did a massive gold for oil deal that people from the BOG, the Vice President's office, were defending because it was supposed to stabilize the cedi because your exposure to FX, because you needed money to buy the oil. So you said, let me use gold for oil so it will reduce pressure on the cedi. All right. Finance Ministry then gives a budget that you present for over 2 hours. We do not see, and again, I stand to be corrected, any mention of this law. Then the Trade Ministry comes up and says we have an LI to limit and restrict the importation of 22 products because of balance of payment issues. Now, there's nothing illegal about that, but where is the coordination between finance, trade, and Bank of Ghana? Because arguably, import restriction of 22 products is more far-reaching than even gold for oil.
Yes.
Yep.
Has the Vice President said anything about it? Has the President endorsed it with a statement? The last thing that the President said was that they will put in place measures to stem the fall of the cedi and the increase in food prices. But that was very general. So, Agric, Finance, BOG, what do you have to say about this list? Let's wait and see. You can assume that because they are all in Parliament, they support but they've left this to be like a KT Amon fight. Again, is that the best way to go about it?
Meanwhile, the purposes of it are not just trade and industry.
No.
They are more significantly linked to the monetary side.
The purpose that's been sold to us.
Yes.
So if the purpose that's been sold to us is to be believed, the fiscal authority, the monetary authority, and the Agric Ministry ought to weigh in.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens. Let me speak to CATS International's Apia Kusi Adomako before I come in studio to see if my theory holds water. Apia, thanks for joining the program. So we've been discussing this import-export thing, and I get the sense that the government wants to use a regulatory approach to influence a sector that a market approach would have been better. I want your quick comments on that, and then we'll come to the MTN price increase as well. Do you agree that what the government is trying to do with the import restriction is a regulatory approach? And tell us whether that's the best way to go about it or whether a market approach would have been better.
Just, I think there's countries adopt both handles, both market and regulatory approach. But sometimes what government is trying to do is more of a regulatory approach. And so the market approach, which does not even strain against the WTO, is what? Making use of tariffs. Tariffs on these products that you have seen you don't need them. So that is one. The other one is also supporting the local industries to be able to produce these goods in commercial and quality and in quantity. And once they're able to do so at that economic of scale, and they do better than even these imports, nobody will be concerned about having to get forests to import these products into the country. And as I've been saying, something like this, we don't do it overnight. We wanted to see how the government machinery is even coordinated in coming up with this policy. It appears the Ministry of Trade is not talking to the finance, they are not even talking to agri, and they are not even talking to the other sectors. And I think that is very problem. In Ghana, we do things overnight, and that is not the best way to do. If you want to do something like this, you need even data to inform the decision. It appears there's no any data because they are not talking about data. They are only talking about that we need to be able to balance our balance of payments and blah blah blah. So far, we need to balance our payments, but we also want to make sure that the solution that we are proposing does not become a problem in the long run. We wanted to clean up the financial sector. It had its unintended consequences. I don't know whether the Ministry of Trade had looked at the potential unintended consequences of this. Of course, I am for import restriction of some commodities, but I think it must be backed by evidence, it must be backed by data and a sound and coherent policy, so that at the end of the day, it will be a win-win for both consumers and also the country.
Thank you, Apia, for talking to us. Apia Adomako is the CEO of or West Africa Director of CAT International. They are into competition advocacy and policy.